Hello, everybody. Scott Golden with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel here with the Raw review for the 21st of September 2020. I've probably seen at least 80 to 90% of Raw over the years. I took a couple years off here and there, but I've seen the vast majority of the program over the last 27 years, and this has to be the worst Raw program I've seen, at least in the last decade, probably the last 15 years. My gosh, they just don't care. The show doesn't make sense. It's a slog to watch. Retribution invades Raw right at the start. They're wearing new, completely ugly, gas mask looking masks that are kind of faded out. 5 core members have been given contracts. So here's where we are in the storyline. Somebody in WWE corporate likes the fact that there are people that want to destroy the company, or somebody in corporate is just brain dead, and they're devaluing their own third brand in NXT, since most of the people that have been given contracts in Retribution, they've been on NXT. So NXT doesn't matter and doesn't count for contracts, which is just stupid, because why would USA give them a television contract if their brand didn't matter? Anyway, so Mia Yim, we've seen her on NXT, comes out and says the contract isn't going to stop her behavior. Donovan Dijak comes out and says the wrestlers who are collecting paychecks are willing to basically sell themselves out to get there from here. Not the words he used, but G-rated channel. Anyway, Hurt Business interrupts them. They march to the ring. MVP and Bobby Lashley threaten to go after them. There's 5 of them and 3 or 4 are Hurt Business. So then there's like 20 masked people that appear. So basically, is that like the entire NXT roster that suddenly hates the brand that they work for? In a pandemic where people can't pay their bills, in a pandemic where people don't even know where they're going to get food for their kids, you're doing a storyline where people that are making good money are going to basically throw it away because they don't like the brands they work for? Really? In an election year? Like, I don't even understand the logic of this is a good storyline. Plus, they've done invasion storylines. Remember Nexus 10 years ago? Remember NXT being the invading brand last year? Just about every Survivor Series a few months before, somewhere between SummerSlam and Survivor Series, they do the same tired storyline, and then they squash the people that invade, and they've done it for years. This is ridiculous. Anyway, so, 2 members give Lashley a double choke slam, and they go to the commercial break. After they go to break, everyone disappears. Where'd they go? Who got rid of them? Did security come out? Were the police called? We don't know. Anyway, Phillips, Byron Saxton, and Jerry Lawler is on commentary. Lawler couldn't believe that this outlaw group has been given contracts, neither could I. 50 years in the business, and he must be ready to cut a cartwheel for how stupid this is. Sarah, the interviewer, asks Rey Mysterio about Dominic getting his first championship match or chance at a title shot, and Rey says he's proud of his son. He'll make his mark in the WWE as a tag team just as Rey did, and it's an honor that Dominic could do this and follow in his footsteps. So Mercedes Martinez is one of the other Retribution members. And so we go to the triple threat match. The winner of this is supposed to challenge the Street Profits at the pay-per-view. Now get this. Your teams are Andrade and Angel Garza, who the Street Profits have already beaten. Seth Rollins and Murphy, who Street Profits have already beaten, and Dominic Mysterio and Humberto Carrillo. Carrillo is on again, off again on television, and Mysterio is brand new. Anyway, they give them 5 minutes. Street Profits join on commentary. This isn't great. Zelina Vega is no longer with the team of Andrade and Angel Garza. Good for her, I suppose. Carrillo was last on Raw in August, So we're talking about over a month's time that he hasn't been seen on TV, but we don't know where he was. He's been on a losing streak for quite a few weeks, and he's been on Main Event in recent time, but who watched that show? So Dominic is the best partner he can come up with is a confirmed loser. Uh, they each hit, they being Dominic and Carrillo, both hit dives early in the match. Rollins is impressed, and the Street Profits were too. Profits basically meant wanting to wrestle fresh blood, as they called it. So even they're bored with their competition, and they're on TV, and they're the champions. What does that tell you? So then we see Dominic use a code red on Andrade. Murphy nails Andrade with a knee strike, and he goes to make the cover. Rollins leaves him there, so eventually they're splitting up, one would assume. Andrade gives Murphy a back elbow, and Garza follows with the wing clip finish for the pinfall win. So we get Chapter 47 of Garza and Andrade against the Street Profits, which isn't good except for whichever Street Profit does the really good frog splash. That's like the highlight of every match. This Clash of the Champions looks like Clash of the Enhancement Talent. And so, I mean, that's that. And, you know, I mean, it's overdone. It's ridiculous. Retribution cuts a promo. If they're still invading, who's giving them live mics and why? Donovan Dijak does the talking. He says the Hurt Business could have been part of the solution. Instead, they're part of the problem. And he says that they take the money of the WWE. Well, if they're contracted, don't they take the same money now? They said that they would fight in a match tonight, and also that Retribution would repay them with Retribution. Yes, this is apparently going to be a tagline and probably a t-shirt. Then we go to the KO show. Now, this is ridiculous, too, for all different reasons. I love Kevin Owens when they give him something to believe in. However, they give him Shane McMahon, as a guest, a guy that he had a 2-year on-and-off feud with, sent Shane home off TV. Shane's now back on TV. And the best Owens can do during this is say that it's water under the bridge. Kevin takes a shot at Aleister Black, calling him Captain Hot Topic. I guess I missed the joke there. And then they pipe in Shane O'Mac chants somewhere along the way. They acknowledge the past, and Shane's plugging Raw Underground. I don't know why they're still doing Raw Underground, since it doesn't really seem to go anywhere. Shane talks up Dabba-Kato, who beat up Owens 2 weeks ago. Shane invites him to the ring. Owens assumed this was going to happen. He has Shane on for as a guest for this reason, and he confronts Kato for what he did to him. And he said they will fight one day. Why not 2 days if it's your show? But anyway, Owens slaps him in the face. Introduces Braun Strowman as his other guest. Braun Strowman, who, by the way, is from SmackDown, which is the other show, so why would fans on Raw, unless we assume they watch all three brands, which I guess is what we're assuming. We're assuming that people have time for, 7 hours of WWE content per week on mainstream times during an election season. This is a wise bet. Anyway, Strowman enters, faces off with Kato. Shane gets between them. Shane said they'd fight. Wouldn't be on the KO show. It would be on Underground. Shane spoke. Aleister Black shows up, and they use Black to pull Owens crotch first into the ring post a few times. And then Charlie Caruso asks McIntyre about Keith Lee. McIntyre says he understands. Everyone wants to be champion. If you don't want to be champion, then why are you in WWE? He then laughs and says that they'll laugh over drinks one day about the fighting, and he would fight Lee tonight. He also said the drinks would be on him after he beats Lee because he'd have more money or something to that effect. Retribution beats up Titus O'Neil and Carrillo backstage, and they officially make the six-man of Hurt Business and Retribution official for later in the night. Keith Lee, remember him? Remember when he was like the biggest thing on NXT? Remember when he was the biggest thing on the Independents? Now they give him a less than 12-minute match with Drew McIntyre on Raw, and they squash him. By the way, this is the way we enter the second hour of the program. So all this stuff that I've just talked about that sounds like it's about as interesting as watching paint dry was the first hour. So Lee sends McIntyre over the top rope with a running body block, which was a cool spot. So there's a backdrop onto an announce table that doesn't break under the weight of Keith Lee, which doesn't make sense. McIntyre cuts Lee's comeback off, and McIntyre comes back with a spine buster for a 2 count of his own, and hits a neck breaker, gets another near fall. Lee blocks a DDT, and hits a clothesline for a near fall of his own. I mean, the match here is good, but I don't know, build that for like the Rumble. Build that for WrestleMania. Build that for something. Don't throw away Keith Lee after you spent months, if not a year plus on NXT building him up to be a joint champion. Like, are you stupid? Anyway, Lee sets up for the Spirit Bomb. McIntyre slips out, hits a Claymore kick. Randy Orton attacks McIntyre from behind with a steel chair with a DQ. So Lee is looking weak and only saved from loss due to a Randy Orton run-in. Orton uses the chair on McIntyre. Lee gets kicked in the head by Orton. They pipe booing in, so we're supposed to be mad at this. I'm rather apathetic, don't know about you. Orton enters the ring post the break, and they're still playing the booing. So the crowd, which is watching on TV monitors, or however they're watching, is supposedly booing for like the whole 3 minutes of the commercial break. I don't think so. Orton yells at the fans for doubting that he'd make it. He says he's been there for 20 years. He's never walked away from a title shot. He says this is going to be his 14th championship win. He acknowledges that this is not a normal match. It's an ambulance match, and that it's parked. He points to the one that's parked on the stage. He says he took a ride in it a couple weeks ago, and so if you were in an ambulance a couple weeks ago, how do you even know you're cleared? They don't acknowledge this. Matter of fact, they don't acknowledge how McIntyre healed so quickly either. Come to think of it, Orton realizes that everyone must have. What it must feel like to be taken out by him by taking an ambulance ride himself a few weeks back. And he says an ambulance means different things to different people. To him, it represented his 14th world title, and he said that he would flatline Drew McIntyre after an RKO. So the RKO is now lethal? That's interesting. This promo was good. Probably the best thing on the show, which says a lot for the next hour and a half of the program. Sarah asks Asuka who's the biggest threat between Mickie James and Zelina Vega. Billie Kay interrupts. Remember them? Also, her former partner interrupts and says that Asuka says she'll defend against anyone. She wondered if the catering girl or a interviewer would get a shot. Peyton Royce shows up and says she should get a shot. Asuka wondered if they were still friends. Why does it matter? Kay and Royce said they still had each other's backs, although there was hesitation between one of them, and no, I cannot tell them apart because I have never cared that much. Anyway, Zelina Vega beats Mickie James. Remember they stopped Mickie James' match last week on Raw? Yeah, I don't think the bookers did either. They go just over 4 minutes. Mickie James does a promo, said she's not going to give up where she said she did not give up last week and would not give up on going for the Women's Championship. So that does beg the question of what did happen last week if she didn't give up. This is under addressed. Vega applies an octopus hold, which was just awkward. I mean, for Vega's first television match, this wasn't bad. But James blocks a kick and then exchanged pinning attempts. James hits a series of kicks and a flapjack, followed by a Thesz press for a near fall. Vega comes back and hits a backcracker for a pinfall win. She now gets to face Asuka at the Clash of Champions. So you've given her, one, maybe 2 matches? And now she's challenging for the Raw Championship. So that, supposedly, since Raw is supposedly the biggest show on the brand, she's challenging for the biggest women's title after 1 or 2 wins? Why? Hurt Business beats up secondary members of Retribution, the ones that don't matter or not under contract. MVP asked Lashley and Benjamin if they had things handled. And Benjamin says yes. Bianca Belair vignette. She's beats some guy in the gym. She outlifts him. She lifts a tire. She does a bunch of pizza strikes, which is cool, except if the guy in the gym ends up being a wrestler someday, in which case he just got shamed to heck by a girl, which I don't have a problem with in theory. Girls can be stronger than guys all day, but in a perceptual world where men and women aren't supposed to compete, he just made himself look really weak if he's supposed to wrestle on national TV someday. And people put 2 and 2 together. Anyway, we go away. There's a segment with R-Truth on the beach. They wear Tozawa and ninjas wear fake shark outfits. They do a bunch of sketch comedy where the punchline is Akira Tozawa got eaten by a shark. This was a waste of time, good 5 minutes maybe. MVP and Alexander in the ring. MVP said that Retribution would be facing them in a 6-man match later, and they'd find out why they were called the Hurt Business. He called them the Executioners, used a judge and jury line. Alexander said he found out the hard way that crossing the Hurt Business ain't the way to go, and he says that Apollo Crews knows tonight that he's getting revenge. He being Alexander. Alexander says he didn't care about Crews or his kids, which, why are we talking about somebody's kids on national television? Crews and Ricochet show up. Crews didn't care why Alexander did what he did, but he's going to beat him tonight, supposedly. And that'll be a preview of Crews and Lashley for the U.S. Championship on Sunday. Oh yeah, there's a network purview on Sunday that's about as lukewarm as day-old porridge. Anyway, Apollo Crews with Ricochet defeats Cedric Alexander in just under 8 minutes. I was hoping that this meant a win for Cedric. Cedric is a guy I'd love to see them re-push. He's a really talented guy. I remember him from watching a bunch of independent stuff he was on in the Carolinas and the surrounding area, but they're wasting him here. Crews uses a baseball slide, and Alexander's in control after a commercial break. Gets a near fall off a beautiful Michinoku driver, and Crews comes back with an enziguri and a crossbody, stinger splash, and a Samoan drop for near fall. They're throwing every spot at each other. Really good match if you like athletic stuff, but not the best match if you're looking for a story to be told. Alexander hits a suicide dive and Ricochet gets in his face, so he told Ricochet to back up. Alexander slips back in the ring. Cruz caught him with a roll-up for a pinfall win. So they do a bunch of athletic stuff, and the finish is a roll-up. No, it doesn't get any better. Cruz gets distracted by the Hurt Business music, so he gets attacked from behind. Lashley puts Cruz down with the full Nelson before leaving to hype their network per-view match. Yay, we're into the third hour. Boo, it's no better than the first two. Dolph Ziggler and Arturo Ruas have a back and forth fight. Ziggler wins with a sleeper chokeout. Shane talks to Strowman. Strowman didn't want to talk to him. Shane hands the mic to Brina Bradley, who happened to be nearby, and she asks a question instead. Strowman speaks and threatens to beat everyone up, and he'd go home with a pocket full of teeth. And then Shane basically said he should fight. Oh yeah, now it gets even worse. Worse, you say? Yes, worse, I say. Seth Rollins comes out and continues his feud with Rey Mysterio Jr. Rollins says that the Mysterio family has put him through a bunch. He says he notices something has been off. He comes out with a manila envelope containing fraternity papers. However, the fraternity papers, which are first said to be for Dominic, we did the storyline. Remember when Eddie Guerrero was alive? Yeah, we did that then. We tried to revive it again. Rollins realizes the error of his ways and says Aaliyah may not be Rey's daughter. And Rollins does the best he can with this. He says he, has people doing investigations, but he wonders about the evidence of Rey not being Aaliyah's father. He says other people in the crowd and at home have been through the same thing. So now we're talking about fraternity tests again. This feels like a poor man's Jerry Springer in 2020. Anyway, Rey told Rollins not to speak to her, meaning Aaliyah. Rey said he's already spoken to her about what happened with Buddy Murphy last week, where Aaliyah checked on him after he got beaten up. He raised her to be a caring and compassionate individual. He said she's only 19 and a child and doesn't know the business. Aaliyah seems offended by being called a child, and she storms away to the back. Angie Mysterio follows her. Rey and Dominic look like lost puppies for about 30 to 45 seconds before storming into the back, and Rollins apologizes for this. Anyway, so Women's Tag Team Championships, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defeat Natalya and Lana in a non-title match in 1 minute. Yes, 1 minute. Why even bother having them put their gear on for this? Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan join on commentary, and they talk about being a better team, stronger team than the champions. Baszler gets Lana to tap out kick quickly with the Coquina clutch. Big surprise there. Champs go after the challengers after the match. Ruby and Morgan fight until Baszler backs them off. Jax saw Lana is still weakened, gives her Samoan drop through the announce table. A second week in a row. I guess that's how Lana's going to finish out her contract, just taking Samoan drops every week. Anyway, Caruso interviews McIntyre, who's icing his jaw in the trainer's room. He said that he's going to beat Orton up on Sunday, and he's ready to pick a fight tonight. He marched off, and it looks like he had just been sitting around for the last hour waiting for this interview. Aaliyah tells Rey that she can speak for herself. Rey's trying to protect her. She doesn't seem to want his protection. She said she only came to Raw to support her brother. Rollins has hurt both of them. She kind of hints that she doesn't blame Rollins that much, but it's not really said. She's worried about what Rollins is capable of doing to her and her mom, and she left. Riddick Moss knocks out Eric with the right hand, so that's what happens when your partner goes down with an injury. Shane asks his interview girl to ask Dabba-Kato a question, and she seems worried about doing this. Shane asks the question instead. That's my phone, so I will get it and be back momentarily. So we move into more of the Raw Underground stuff. It's fine for what it is, but it doesn't really serve a long-term purpose. The women's championship match is in there too. Asuka defeats Peyton Royce with Billie Kay in less than 2.5 minutes. A few near falls, but Asuka's here to dominate. Asuka Locks tries to get in, but doesn't get her. Vega comes in, gets the DQ out of it. Asuka tries to go after her. Murphy approaches Aaliyah in the back. She's startled to see him. He sat down next to her and says that the things with Rollins have gotten out of hand. He apologized for anything that may have made her uncomfortable. They're going to do a love storyline at some point. You can see it coming. She either turns or he turns good to be with her or something. But there's a romance storyline coming there. Braun Strowman defeats Dabba-Kato. So you've been building him for months and months and months. 90 seconds is all it took. Strowman takes him down with the right hand and mounts him, and then it's why waste weeks building the guy up as a monster if you're just going to have him squashed to a guy that's been cold for a long time. The Fiend thing did not make Strowman warmer, that's for sure. And him being put in the WrestleMania spot didn't really help him all that much either. Anyway, 6-man tag, about 6.25 minutes for this. Each team enters before the commercial break. They do the wonky fight scenes. Women members are not at ringside. Male members of Retribution are named T-Bar, Mace, Slapjack. I guess we've got names that are named after weaponry. Anyway, they add in cheering when the Hurt Business is on offense. It's obvious that no one cares about this either way just by watching the video screens, which is what I knew would happen with the video screens eventually. You'd see how bored people actually are. Match ends with a disqualification when one of them punched Lashley, and they ended it on a punch. Secondary members run in, attack the Hurt Business. McIntyre's music hits. He runs to the ring, and the rest of the roster jumps in. McIntyre is the only one who is having any luck, and Orton slips in, RKO's him to go off the show as he points to the ambulance. Again, worst Raw in forever. I don't even know why anybody would watch this show, and I'm not even a football fan, but I would have rather watched the football game. Anyway, that's your Raw review for this. We've got more World Class coming tomorrow. We're going to go into the second half of the year of 1985, which, standing on its head backwards drinking water, would be better than Raw. Anyway, till next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.